Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we're back. Hey, Julie, it's October the 16th.
Yes, and Friday.
And Friday, yeah. Like that matters, really.
I know. It all kind of runs together.
It does.
Well, and I was going to say no podcasts on the weekend, but the Sunday show will be coming up. So
yeah. And
we can pre-warn them about how that'll go.
And unfortunately, I have 3 appointments tomorrow morning. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, such is the way.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Exactly.
Life in paradise.
Well, I will tell you, it is quite interesting how the real estate market, because of the COVID thing, it seems like all this buyer activity and seller activity really was sort of pushed forward by the equivalent of the amount of months that everyone was sort of, enforced quarantine. And it looks like we're carrying in this huge, momentous, housing surge well into next year, which is incredible.
Absolutely, we are. And interest rates are going to stay low. It continues to be a story of inventory for most places.
You know what I find especially fascinating is, you and I sold real estate for a long time and coached for even longer, is that normally in November and December, it's sort of like this sort of reprieve in essence. There is there are fewer transactions, still plenty of things selling, but fewer transactions, fewer buyers and sellers. Traditionally, for a billion years, that's how it's been. I don't think it's going to be that way this year.
I don't either. I think you're right. Traditionally, it's been like the market takes a little breath around the holidays,
right?
Fires up a little bit at the beginning, and then everybody's waiting for spring, and then spring's the traditional market. But we've got a vacant rental property, and it's got tons and tons of showings set up this weekend. So it's pretty much everywhere.
FOMO, man, fear of missing out is alive and well. And you add to it the interest rates and whatnot. It's really incredible. I've never, we've never experienced anything. And so the other element to this is also interesting is how opportunistic agents need to be this time of year. Because most agents, now so go back to the idea that traditionally this has been a slower time. So most agents have used that as an excuse to essentially be lazy.
Take a break.
It's not unusual for brokerages back when there was actual brick and mortar brokerages, back in the olden days, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't unusual for them to, in essence, be closed this time of year. Absolutely. They would be open, maybe half days or, they're trying to, save costs. So there's no need to have a receptionist if no one's transacting, save the money, all the rest of it. And it's kind of a joke. If you walk into a real estate office, really, into this month, you guys just mark our words, drive past real estate brokerage offices, and you're going to see the number of cars, COVID aside, you're going to see the number of cars in the parking lot be essentially a handful. And it's just because traditionally most agents just assume that there's no deals to do this time of year. And so they use this as an excuse to sort of unplug. And that has made sense for a lot of people in the industry, except for top producers. Because top producers, the agents, and I remember it was into our second year in real estate when we were in our early 20s where we figured this out because someone told us, they said you don't want to be slacking in fourth quarter because the reality of it is fourth quarter is the easiest time to go after business because so few agents are in the market. And most agents that are, have listings that they're going to be taking in the spring, they're just assumptive that those sellers will list with them. And so if you, do your job with intensity in fourth quarter, you're going to carry huge momentum into, obviously the new year. And that's what we did. And we did that every year after that. And it really does make sense. But now you have the incredible real estate market and you have the, combination of the incredible real estate market combined with most agents not realizing that this is going to be probably the best fourth quarter of their lives if they just stay focused. And then you have interest rates and then you have, all these other things. My gosh, guys, if you are not focused, if you're not really being opportunistic right now, you're missing what might be one of the greatest fourth quarters in the history of real estate. Actually, I think I heard something or read something this morning. I was reading news articles for our website. Something about there's the number of, what? Oh, you told me something. That's actually something from a coaching client. You just told me this 15 minutes ago. The houses in this gal's market in Oregon.
In Idaho. And
Idaho.
Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think many people think of Idaho as being like a bellwether market the way they do LA or Miami or Manhattan or something like that. But she's had several instances where they're getting twice the price they did since 2018.
Right.
Where there's multiple bids on just a dirt lot, nothing on it. You're basically bidding on the ability to build something, right? Multiple offers on multifamilies is pretty much fast and furious everything. And in fact, on my elite coaching calls this week, The topic was, if you want to find inventory, what are you willing to do that you don't normally do? Is your plan to wait until something pops up in the MLS and then race to go show it? Especially listing agents who want those because the listing agent always wins. So we had a list of 4 or 5 things that is very effective, but none of them are wait for the MLS. Things like prospecting property management companies that don't take listings.
Or if you're in a vacation area, you should prospect VRBOs. You should prospect for rent by owners.
Yes.
You need to be more creative. You definitely need to.
The great thing about that is the phone numbers are easier. And
right.
That's one of the number one things agents like to complain about. I can't get a phone number. Well, property management, VRBO, smaller investors that have homes for rent. I know my phone's going to blow up because the rental, people are going to be like, do you want to sell it? Do you want to sell it?
And we use a property manager, but there's a lot of investors that when they see a house go for rent, they then call and try to get, well, you guys all know this, right? Then they'll find out, they'll do a public search for your contact information and they'll, obviously ask if you want to sell it. And that's smart. I mean, really, they're being opportunistic. So really, at the end of the day, guys, I know it's tempting to want to, kick your proverbial feet up on your proverbial desk and just sort of coast for the rest of the year, but please don't do that. And if you're not building momentum into the next year, that means you're going to have to build momentum at the same time everybody else is, which means it's going to be 10x harder because you're then having to, compete more. And then there's so much noise in the channel from so many other agents offering so many different things. And again, you add in the iBuyers and the rest of it. And we do have a fresh topic for you guys today. And the topic is?
Yes, the topic is actually also from the Harris Rules book. This is actually part of the appendix. And in the appendix, I have all kinds of interesting little, maybe not as long as a chapter, but things that are going to help them. This is called 7 Qualities of the Best Brokers, Managers, and Team Leaders. And I like to add also coaches would be in that category. So what are the qualities you're actually looking for in a broker or a team leader? So
before Julie gets to her first point, I want to remind all of you guys that we are still accepting people into the free coaching program. And if you want to be part of the free coaching program, just text the word survival to 31996. Text the word survival to 31996. I think by the end of this year, we'll have had over 10,000 agents join the free coaching program. So you definitely want to get on board with that. And now here's the cool thing about the free coaching program. We were just talking about building momentum into the new year, and we're obviously going to get back to the topic for today's show. But building momentum to the new year, some of you don't know how to do it. That's the reason we created the 90-day massive action plan. And the 90-day massive action plan is included with the free coaching program. And the 90-day massive action plan literally gives you a day-by-day exact action plan of what you should be doing. And I got, good news for you. Nothing in the 90-day massive action plan is going to entail spending money, buying leads. It's all going to be skills-based and effort-based because those are the things that are going to get you the results the quickest, right? That's really at the end of the day what our coaching program is all about. Drill down, practical, tactical solutions. So if you want to join the free coaching program, just text the word survival to 31996. Text the word survival to 31996.
Yes, that's right. And the cool thing about the 90-day massive action plan in particular is that it's great for any level of agent, any level of experience, because it's not asking you to spend a bunch of money. I have a lot of our more grizzled veterans that love that because it gives them a 90-day snippet just to focus on that quarter. For a lot of people, that's easier than having some kind of yearly plan where you figure, I've got 11 months left. I can slide a little bit. So 90-day massive action plan, guys. All right, so 7 qualities of the best brokers, managers, and team leaders. Before we get into those 7 things, there are actually 3 ways to make those qualities practical and applicable to you personally. Number 1, are you a broker, manager, or team leader, or, possibly some combination of that? See the qualities that we're going to talk about and assess if you have them. If so, make the commitment to always maintain them. And if not, prioritize what you've got to do to actually get those qualities, or you might be in danger of losing agents or team members. Number 2, does your broker, manager, or team leader have these qualities? If not, might be time to make a change. And number 3, if you are your own broker running your own show, adopt and adapt the qualities to be a great leader for yourself since you are your own leader. So that's how to make it practical and tactical.
Now, we did review on a past podcast about our philosophy on teams, and we gave the exact drilled down solution for scaling up your real estate practice. And I want to make it really, really clear. And because we had a lot of, frankly, questions after that podcast, because agents had said they'd been getting a lot of pressure and they felt like a lot of times it was essentially premature for them. And they were getting pressure mostly from their brokers and office managers to start adding staff members. The problem with adding staff members and overhead and liability before you've actually mastered a lot of the the elements, the key, most important elements of your real estate business, is that you're then going to be putting people in place that you're not going to be able to have the skill set to truly monitor because you never actually mastered it yourself. So it's very, very important you do things in a logical order. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to have to spend money to compensate for essentially the latency that's in your business. And that's going to happen. It happens all the time. So if you've not yet learned, we're going to tell you the qualities of a great leader in essence here. But if you've not yet learned how to, master the 5 or 6 critical things that are income producing in the real estate business, please don't even think about adding staff. I know the idea of having a team and all of that, it feels seductive, right? You're going to be making money, from other people's efforts and the rest of it, but that's not really how it works in real estate. What you're going to do is you're going to add sales staff. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. And then you're going to replace the time you were actually spent working directly with the buyers and sellers to managing the people that are now working with the buyers and sellers for you. And your margins go through the floor. So just, again, I'm really, concerned for our industry because so many of you guys are given so much pressure to start essentially building these teams when you've not yet actually learned how to be a successful business person. Do things in order. And I'll give you a little secret. You might discover, as many of our top coaching clients have, that once they actually have done things in order, they know how to proactively lead generate, they know how to pre-qualify, they know how to present, they know how to negotiate, they know how to close, they know how to do the things that are necessary for them to make money, and they can do these things at a high level. They then choose not to build a big team because their margins are so essentially high, 50, 60, 70%. And I'm thinking of like Rob Johnson in Greenwich, Connecticut. He's the number one agent. It is it's a new brokerage name. They just actually changed brokerages. Harris, Doug, I don't remember. Anyway, so the name of the brokerage is Douglas Stevenson. I don't remember. Okay. I wish I would have remembered. But anyway, the guy does $150 million per year.
Rob's not hard to find online.
Rob Johnson. Yeah, Rob's not hard to find online. He's one of the top agents in the country, obviously. And he has one assistant. How about that, guys? Mm-hmm. And I was interviewing Jade Mills, and you guys know her from, California. I think she's with Prudential or Coldwell Banker. And I asked her about her team when I was interviewing her, and she just sort of paused and essentially said, I don't have a team. And I think that's really kind of shocking when people who have kind of gone to the church of you must build a team, they find that almost confronting. Like, oh my gosh, how can you actually sell that kind of production and not have a team? Well, the thing is a lot of these teams are selling all this huge production. They're actually not making any profit. And so what a lot of these top agents have chosen to do is they've chosen to focus on profit being the first priority of their business, not just what's left over maybe someday. So again, as we go through these qualities of a leader, don't be seduced into believing that really at the end of the day, you have to lead anyone other than really yourself and maybe one transaction coordinator or something like that.
That's exactly right. So number one quality, the best brokers, managers, and team leaders actually stay on the front lines. They stay what you call frosty. They're not complacent. They know that inaction is an action. Let that settle in for a second. So ideally, they stay selling, even if it's maybe not on the level that they did, a few years ago, because now they're managing the team or the brokerage. But they do stay in front of their salespeople at all times. They're not hiding out. They're not hard to find. And in fact, the best ones actually have open office hours. You can use something like ScheduleOnce.com or obviously Zoom, but they're not hiding out and they actually schedule it. We work with a lot of our coaching clients that want to make sure that they're holding people accountable. It's a regular schedule thing. It's not just when you think about it or you freak out in the middle of the night.
Brown Harris Stevenson. I just remembered. Yeah.
Okay, good. For Rob
back.
Johnson.
Exactly.
Okay, so they create an office environment, whether that's online or not, that fosters education and growth of skills. Masterminds, reading lists, TED Talks, exposure to other successful people and companies. Even if they're not in front of you physically all the time, they are fostering that type of culture. And I do have to point out that, EXP does a really killer job of that with the education component and staying frosty and making sure that agents are getting what they need and that it's basically there all the time. Point number 2, or, as I just read the word asset, sorry. The best brokers, managers, and team leaders know that salespeople will never follow or trust you. And I put coaches into this category too. They won't follow or trust you if you've never sold real estate before, you've never sold a lot of real estate, and or are not still in the game on the front lines. And there's a quote, I can't remember where we originally heard this, but game knows game. A good salesperson can smell another salesperson from a mile away. They know if you've been in it or not. I feel this, I mean, I'm on the coaching front lines every day, so I see this with people that have maybe tried something else out that didn't work. They know. Maybe they don't know on the first call, but they know.
Well, you can sense it with all the, the fake coaches, basically. There's so many. Being a coach is something that there's no obvious requirement or regulations around if you call yourself a coach or not. By the way, if you're trying to decide whether you're going to hire a coach, which most of you need to consider doing, obviously I want you to consider us. But if you're going to be looking at what your options are, go to comparacoach.com, comparacoach.com, and that's a website we put up years ago. And it's essentially the questions that you should be asking when interviewing a potential coach. So comparacoach.com.
Yes, that's right. So number 3, the best brokers, managers, and team leaders communicate constantly and clearly, and they readily support their agents. They have daily meetings, team huddles, mini motivation check-ins. Maybe they even have a private Facebook or workplace group to share ideas, wins, challenges, solutions. They use group chats on every device to provide accountability and availability. Again, they're not hiding out from you. John Maxwell said, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So if you're not getting that, you might want to think about maybe making a switch. Okay, number 4. The best brokers, managers, and team leaders keep a transparent scoreboard highlighting goals and holding agents accountable. They actually allow leaders to shine. They stoke the competition. They don't cringe at accountability or avoid confrontation if it helps team members learn, grow, and achieve greatness. They raise everyone up versus playing to the lowest player's level. And I have to say, I have seen that problem amongst brokerages sometimes where they don't really celebrate the front runner because, we don't want to make everybody else feel bad. Or, it just has kind of weird culture, I would say, is how I'd define that.
Well, we were trying to essentially have everyone feel it's the participation trophy phenomena that's taken over a lot of business think, where they're, it's crazy, guys. Look, the bottom line is there's always competitors, and you're the greatest competitor you have. Oh, you guys think I'm going to say yourself? That kind of true, but you're in real life, you have other competitors. There are real competitors out there that are chasing your same centers of influence and past clients, your same listing opportunities. If you think that those people are going to just list with you automatically, you're wrong. And you have competitors now that are Zillow and Opendoor and all these other tech-based companies that are going to create a real viable option for consumers, sellers, specifically to start looking into. Those are your competitors. So for you to start, this whole, I think, woo-woo type thinking that my greatest competitor is myself, it's sort of kind of true, but not really. I mean, at the end of the day, there is true competition in every aspect of life. Don't hide from it, embrace it, and then just become the best version of yourself as a sales professional.
That's right. And Peter Drucker said, leadership is lifting a person's vision to high heights, the raising of a person's performance to a higher standard, the building of a personality beyond its normal limitations. That's what you guys are looking for. Number 5, the best brokers, managers, and team leaders know that teams are great, but great salespeople want to be held individually responsible. They know that weak salespeople want to hide in a team. They detect weakness and help that player overcome it to thrive, or they can wean them off the team. They don't carry dead weight for very long. Great brokers and team leaders know that the good ones won't stick with you if they're not in an environment where they're challenged. So that's another little team issue.
But it's so funny that that's such a great point. I know we've said that many times before, but that's often what happens is that the people that want to join a team, you might look, it's the 1% rule. 1% of the people you have working for you are really going to be, or working in your brokerage and just in life in general, those are the ones that are going to be the outperformers. Those are the gazelles in essence. But what you're going to discover is that when you have a brokerage, and I know this from having worked with EXP now intensely for the last 2 years, and we've done a lot of brokerage and teamwork where we're bringing brokerages and teams into EXP. And when I look at their profit and loss statements, it is always the same. If it's a brokerage with 100 people, 100 agents, you're going to see that maybe 10 or 15 are selling in essence everything. And then you're going to have like 30, maybe even 35 that sell nothing. And yet they're on the rosters as being, agents of this brokerage. And that happens consistently. So what you've got to focus on in life in general, especially if you're running a business of any variety, especially a sales business, to Julie's point, is you want to focus on those 10 or 15 people. If you have a limited amount of energy and time, focus on the people that are your gazelles. Don't waste a lot of time trying to uplift the downtrodden with regards to those 35 people that don't sell anything. Don't worry about trying to change their mindset, or don't worry about the rest of that. That's just the nature of how life works. And I don't know why it works that way. I know from a coaching perspective, it forever has driven me crazy. Why it is that everyone can't achieve at a higher level. And, the truth is that some people just choose not to. And maybe it's genetic. I really don't know. But a lot of people, they just won't put in the effort. They'll talk the talk, but then you look at the actions and there's no actions and there's certainly no results. Another little, we're hitting them with a lot of little zingers today. Mm-hmm. But another one is you don't judge a person by what they say. You judge them by what they do. You judge them by the results that they get. And look for that. Those are the types of leadership qualities that you have to have. And if you're going to position yourself in life as a leader, and you're not recognizing the fact that a bulk of everything that happens in life comes down to essentially 1% of the people making the needle move, then you're never really going to be an effective leader, because the people, that 1%, they're not going to want to work for you because you're not reinforcing them and appreciating them. You're spending too much time trying to uplift the downtrodden.
That's right. And in fact, Theodore Roosevelt said the best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men and women to do what he wants done, but the self-restraint enough to keep yourself from meddling with them while they do it. So,
yep.
You also have to let your front runners run and not be part of the problem. Point number 6, or tenet number 6, the best brokers, managers, and team leaders work with salespeople to establish their own particular goals to be achieved with or without a team. They use things like the real estate treasure map, which is the all-encompassing plan for success. This includes personal goals, accountability, knowing your financial picture, and your magic number. All the stuff that we talk about on the podcast all the time.
Yep. And by the way, you guys get the real estate treasure map for free when you join the free coaching program. Just text the word survival to 31996. Text the word survival to 31996.
Yes, that's right. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. That's from Rosalind Carter. Okay, they know how to motivate 2 kinds of salespeople. Salespeople, number 1, salespeople who don't have financial security and can't work efficiently, they often operate from fear mode. So, a really great team leader or a broker or a coach doesn't have just one type of client that they can make successful. So that's number 1, somebody that's maybe operating from financial insecurity and fear, but also salespeople who won't work unless they're in a corner or broke, or, work and earn and then lose what they have. A great coach or broker or leader actually has different tools for different situations. They're not only good at, say, motivating the new agent. They're much more broad than that. Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, the people perish.
How about that?
So, and one last thing, number 7, the best brokers, managers, and team leaders exude confidence. They lead calmly with control and low emotion. They set the tone of the practice, and they lead through doing, not just saying what to do. That was your previous point, that it's not just what you say, it's what you do. They have obvious integrity, ethics, and motivation. Jack Welch said, before you're a leader, success is all about growing yourself, but when you become a leader, success is about growing others. So I think that's a lot of, if I were to summarize that, I would say being tuned in to who you are leading, even if that's yourself, or maybe it's just one assistant. Maybe you've got a small team. Maybe you're running a big brokerage, but you've got to really be tuned in. The thing I see agents do complain about, not being able to get help quickly, feeling like they don't have any direction, that kind of thing. And if that's how you feel, you're probably in the wrong spot.
So you don't need to go any further than modern culture to realize that most people don't know what true leadership qualities are. And I'm going to give you a real salient example, and I haven't talked to you about this, but it is fascinating. So there is a movement behind the idea of essentially carving out a niche as a self-proclaimed expert. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of essentially gurus, online influencer types who will call themselves experts or call themselves coaches and whatnot that have really no experience in whatever the hell they're talking about. And it's just some sort of little passing fancy. But what's happened is that the culture, our culture, has started to put value on people that are just talking and not actually doing. This whole focus on being an influencer, this whole focus on being, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And it's all fake. And I wonder, I really, really do wonder, and unfortunately I think I know what the answer is, but this whole generation of people that have come up that have been admiring all the fakery, all the neurotic neuroses and all the, braggadocious behavior on social, right? Where all these people are sort of putting this, almost, it is a fake representation of themselves. And all these other than people are gravitating towards it. And that then becomes sort of, woven into the culture as the ideal. what's not happening is there's no substance behind any of that. So then you guys are not discerning enough, most of you, who are to know who you should be listening to. And so you just latch on to some influencer who considers themselves an expert, but you don't drill down and to really determine whether you should be listening to that person in the first place.
Yeah, because the filter has not been activated.
Yes, exactly.
I see that even with, I got to watch what Zoe's watching. She's almost 7. But there's like little kid influencers that play with toys and try and sell you stuff, and she just doesn't have a filter. She just wants something pink, and sparkly.
Right. Well, but
So-
for adults though,
Yeah.
when you're like trying to decide the course of how you should be behaving in real estate, for example, and what you should be doing, and if you just essentially are looking for essentially influencer status as being the filter for who you listen to, you're going to make a whole bunch of mistakes. And I'm going to give you, for example, there are a lot of internet marketing guys and gals, obviously, who essentially target agents because they know agents aren't that discerning who they're going to listen to. And so what these internet marketer guys will go to is they'll go to agents who, again, they know the agents aren't going to pre-qualify whether they should be listening to them in the first place. And then they'll sell them some whiz-bang shiny idea. I have no idea how much money is generated per year off selling realtor stuff. These internet marketer types come up with all these gimmicks, Facebook marketing ads, Instagram marketing ads. I mean, there's whole coaching companies that are predicated on basically teaching you guys to do all this gimmicky stuff but you don't think to ask the questions like, should I be listening to this person? Has this person ever sold real estate? Have they sold real estate in a high level? How long have they been coaching? Can you prove the results that you're going to get from actual people that you're not paying to give testimonials to? Like, really drill down. That goes back to compareacoach.com. But really, compareacoach.com doesn't even drill down enough on the tough questions, but you should go there, at least get started with those being your questions. Because if you choose to follow somebody who's an influencer who doesn't really, basically they're fake, in essence, that is really what the world has come to a lot of times. They're just a self-proclaimed expert on something, or I'm going to be a coach on this or on the other thing. And if you don't then have the sense to start asking the tough questions, and you're going to very likely fall, victim to a lot of wasted time from listening to a lot of people who are only trying to sell you on the idea, who had no idea whether the results were going to be there to follow. And I know, again, this sounds, I don't even know how some of you are perceiving what I'm saying, because I'm telling you the stone cold truth. There are thousands of companies that have come up since 2007. There was a huge wave, billions of dollars that was being, injected into the real estate industry because essentially Zillow started creating a lot of waves. And then all these other companies, the CRMs, the lead generators, just every type of possible idea. There was geo marketing. There was all these other, things that came and went. And these companies got a lot of funding. And then they'd hit the trade circuit. They'd be National Association of Realtors conventions, and you guys would hear about them. They do a lot of, online marketing. Agents would sign up, but agents never stopped to actually question whether that company, and this is the reason, guys, frankly, that we shun sponsors. In general, it is very rare that Julie and I will have a sponsor, or very rare that we'll have somebody who's trying to sell you something as a guest on the podcast. And I get solicited. I get these emails directly. Probably, no exaggeration, between, I bet you 15 to 20 times a day, I get somebody who's emailing, usually through some sort of, pseudo agency, asking to be a guest on our podcast. And they're telling me about their whiz-bang idea, or they're an investor telling me how they flipped 1 billion houses before they were 14, whatever it is. And like, what the hell? You guys really think that I'm going to allow you to have influence on our coaching clients and our future coaching clients and our podcast listeners? No way. No. And then sometimes what I'll do, if I find somebody that's interesting, who I might want to have on the podcast, is I'll then go online and I'll do research. I'll go and find out how long their website's been around. I'll actually try to do some preliminary information seeking prior to even engaging with them, just to talk with as to whether or not I want to have them on the show. 99.9% of the time, even when I get a very elegant proposal from someone wanting to be on our show, I'll then will do the research, and I'll find out basically their website and their whiz-bang idea. It's all fakery. They've created this.
It was just hatched yesterday,
or hatched last year. And what they're doing is they're saying, for example, I have so many followers, or I have so many people on Instagram, or you have me on your show, I'm gonna share it with my billions of followers or whatever. That means absolutely nothing. If you guys think that means something, you are delusional, because you can buy all of that. If you want a bunch of Instagram followers, if you want a bunch of Twitter followers, if you want a bunch of this, that, and the other thing, you can buy it. And that's what these guys are doing because they're trying to fool you into believing, using obviously social proof, that they are worthy of listening to. Otherwise, why would these other people not be listening to them? You guys get it? That's what's happened. And if you're not very discerning, and so when you're going through the process of decision making of who you're going to listen to, be incredibly critical, because if you listen to somebody and you follow their advice for 60 or 90 days, that could very well be 60 to 90 days completely lost. What's worse is that those lost, months might then actually cause your trajectory for your whole year to come off the rails.
It can definitely wreck the whole year. I've seen that before.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And a lot of the biggest time waste. Oh, here, I'll tell you guys the basic rules for whether it's something you should completely ignore. If they're trying to sell you leads, I would put that on the ignore status until you can buy leads after you've learned how to proactively lead generate. Because what I know from experience is that you won't buy leads once you've learned how to proactively lead generate, because you'll realize that leads are easy to generate. Okay, there's the first one. So anybody that's trying to sell you leads, you got to say no. Just say no. Remember from the 80s?
Just say no. That's right. Or impressions. So that's my favorite one.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's all gimmicks.
What does that even mean, right?
Anybody is trying to sell you branding. There's another thing. Branding is insidious. Because you can't hold whoever's trying to sell you the branding accountable for results.
Okay, so I have to say, in the past, 2 weeks, maybe even 30 days, I've seen, sometimes I go to the realtor Facebook pages to see what's on everybody's minds and just kind of get a feel for it. And oh my goodness, some of the things, and they'll say, I just paid this person in charge of my branding to hire this photographer that wants to do these lifestyle pictures. Right. Okay. Now, I'm all for not doing the typical standard issue realtor headshot, which also there's 5 million. Which headshot? And
I'll be honest, I like seeing people with their dogs, but that is not what you should be spending your money on.
Some of the stuff I've seen, there was one I remember was the agent was 20-something. He was wearing jeans with both knees torn out, tennis shoes, and he was squatting on the back of the trunk of his car at a gas station. And it's is he robbing the place? My first impression is this is somehow professional. It just wasn't even related to being a real estate professional.
But it's so much worse than that.
Bonkers.
They're agents that were so enamored with TikTok.
I know.
Somehow watching a middle-aged man do some dance to some rap video in a suit and tie, carrying real estate sign, to think that that's what you should be doing with your time. Look, it was funny, but it wasn't funny in the way he meant it to be funny.
No, and some of the women's shots, too, are just honestly, what are you selling here? This is not even remotely business appropriate. And this, it is worse now because of social, but I remember because
nobody's telling them not
because they don't know. And,
right.
And because it gets so much action. What is it? I might be remembering this wrong, but I think you and I were listening to a podcast and they were talking about how some of the Instagram backdrops, here I am in front of my private jet.
Oh, yeah.
Was completely made up. Did I get that right?
No. Where'd we hear that?
I can't remember where that was.
Was that Joe Rogan?
Maybe it was. Maybe it was Joe's.
Okay, so here was the story. Yeah, I think that was it. So there are LA-based Instagrammers.
Influencer types. Right?
Yeah, influencer types who have basically that industry of, essentially influencing, that has become such a thing that they've actually started creating sets that make it look like this is my mansion. Oh, and I'm inside of a jet. Because if you want to have a picture of you inside of a jet, you have to go charter a jet, or you have to basically beg.
Not anymore.
Right, not anymore. So now you can rent time. I think it was $60 for an hour, and you're sitting on a fake private jet.
To make your fake lifestyle up.
To make your fake lifestyle up. And yet, how many impressionable, uninformed agents are watching all that stuff and say that person must be worth listening to. Look at that. They have a damn jet, or they're at least able to, ride on a jet. Guys, listen, you got to be really discerning. Your common sense should tell you that before you hire anybody to do, any sort of training and have any sort of real influence, in the truest sense, on your future in your real estate business, you've got to be ultra picky on who you're going to listen to. And by the way, here's a little, poison pill to all of this. Just because somebody was successful at selling real estate does not mean they know how to coach you to be successful at real estate. Those two things, it is an incredibly rare thing to find somebody who can do at a high level that then can teach other people to do at a high level. Most of the people that are teaching people to do have never done it.
That's very true.
Right. So to find somebody that's actually sold real estate at a high level and then actually can teach agents at a high level how to replicate what they did, they're only in the industry. And this is the reason, frankly, when you guys look, and you can Google for this, the top real estate coaches, talk podcast, the same maybe 3 names come up continuously. Obviously, Julie and I, and there's a couple others, and that's it. Because most of these other people, I think there's 5 of us in the industry who are real coaches, who have real decades-long experiences, who actually sold, thousands and thousands of houses. Sure. The rest are fake. They're fake.
I mean, learning to coach, because we have Harris certified coaches that do different coaching things for us. And it's interesting because I see them realize that learning to actually get results and be a great coach is a completely different skill set than just kicking ass at real estate. It's
way harder.
And a science, and it's so much more work.
It's harder.
Think. It's not just setting the example, and in fact, sometimes that intimidates the coaching client so that they are not open to. I mean, it's like a whole thing. You have to really know your client, and not every call is the same. People are motivated in different ways. Different things make them tick. This is why we have the treasure map, so that your goals are based on what you want. Not just because you saw something on Instagram and thought, well, if that person has it, I should be able to have it. That's not real. You've got to personalize and internalize it, and then you actually will achieve it because it's real and it's part of you.
Look, guys, I know that and sometimes, especially Julie, she's way too direct and rude.
Ranty mode.
But really, I realize that this is unusual to be hearing someone like Julie and I say what we say. But here's the problem. And I know everything in life is nowadays supposed to be, unicorns and rainbows and everyone's happy and gets along and we all basically say motivational things and pass along the same. But the reality of it is if you really want to be successful in life, it's not really all that mindset motivation stuff. It's the exact opposite. It's doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level.
Taking action.
Right. And if you want to build a real frankly, listen to the podcast we did just earlier this week on wealth building. You definitely need to drill down on that. But you're going to have to be incredibly selective on who you listen to. Otherwise, you're going to listen to the wrong people. It could ruin, I was saying 90 days, but really it could ruin your life. If I don't care what stage you are in your real estate business, but let's say you're somebody that's been in the business for a long time. And let's say you're being honest and you're not financially where you'd hoped you'd be. In essence, you're not moving the needle financially. Maybe your house is appreciating, but other than that, you're really not accumulating any wealth. You've got to ask yourself why. You got to own that, because if you go to, let's say you've been in the business for 10 years, go and add up all the money that you've earned in the last 10 years and look what you've got to show for it. If you don't have a lot to show for your efforts in terms of actually accumulated net worth, you need to own the fact that you don't know how to accumulate net worth. And is it because the people you listen to for your advice, or maybe you've listened to along the way for what to do in real estate, they were telling you things that were absolute profit destroyers? And is that the reason why that you are not essentially financially successful in the truest sense? You're not rich, or your money works for you. You no longer work for your money. Is it just simply because you've been on the wrong path for a while? I know that's painful to admit. And I know that's hard to accept, that sometimes you need to do a course correction. But man, is there not a better time of year than now to do that? It's okay. It's an old saying. I don't know who said this. There's a difference between quitting and quitting while you're ahead, right? So for you, a lot of you need to really say, you know what? All this gimmicky stuff that maybe I've been doing for the last 36, 48 months when all this social stuff has really been at a fever, really longer than that, but you get the gist of it. Maybe I need to really be honest and accept the fact that all that time, maybe I'm not ready to say it's been wasted, but I know it hasn't been getting me the results that I want. How much time are you spending on trying to be an influencer and not trying to actually have true influence? In other words, the influence that comes from essentially solving other people's problems by helping them buy or sell real estate. There is a huge difference. And like the whole branding thing, just so you guys be super clear about these differences with Julie and I's philosophy of business and life, frankly. Branding, in essence, is you being sold and told that you can actually shortcut essentially having a good reputation. That's what branding is trying to convince you can do.
You're trying to buy your reputation.
Right. You can't. I promise you can't. That's a lie. You can have the fanciest branding ever, but if you don't have a long-term, look, long-term can be 12 or 24 months. I just told you about Rob Johnson. I think he's only been selling real estate for 5 or 6 years, and he's one of the top agents in the country. Probably like one of the top 20 agents in the country. He's only been selling for 5 or 6 years. And by the way, Julie and I have been coaching him that whole time. Right? Now, you may not have heard of Rob Johnson. He doesn't spend a lot of time on his brand and branding, but he has got a stellar reputation. He's become the number one agent in one of the, if not the toughest luxury real estate markets on planet Earth, Greenwich, Connecticut. That's where he has learned to dominate in 5 or 6 years. And he's done it from building a reputation of somebody who's honest and get the job done no matter what the market conditions are. Whereas what a lot of you are seduced into believing is that you do a lot of social, if you make yourself into an influencer, if you spend a lot of money on your brand, that somehow you're going to fool people into believing that you have an equivalent reputation of someone who's actually earned it from actually having sold lots of real estate. You can't. That won't happen. That's a lie. And the marketing and branding companies that are selling all this to you, their job isn't to worry about whether you get results. Their job is to sell you on the dream that you can essentially shortcut the real work of having built a real valuable reputation by buying your branding.
I think it's even worse because let's say that somebody actually calls from some of that branding and then you show up without your skills.
Yeah.
Like it makes it so much harder, right? Than if maybe you just called them or maybe it was a referral or whatever, and they don't quite know what to expect versus expecting like where's your jet?
So here, I'll tell you, you just said something that's funny. So a lot of the Bravo TV stars from LA and from New York, Julie and I've coached some of them. They've been on our podcast. You guys are a long time. Yeah, you guys have been listening to us for a while. You know we're closely connected with a lot of those guys. But I'll tell you something that's funny. Most of them had never sold real estate prior to being TV shows. All right, Tarek, who I did an interview with recently, the home flipper guy, and he said this on the interview, which was awesome. And we've been connected with him for ages. But he never had flipped a single house before basically he got hired for the job with him and his ex-wife of doing the house flipping show. It's all fake.
Yeah, well, what people don't know is that the idea for the show happens before the agent.
Right.
Right? They actually go out saying, we got this idea, we want to do this. I think one of them was like haunted house flipping and like people will watch that. Let's find some agents to do it.
I'd watch that.
Probably.
Flipping a haunted house?
I don't know. But I think, Frederick Eklund is the real deal. Of all of those guys, I think he's got a pretty kick-ass
I agree.
business and
But
very
the others of them?
But the rest of the crowd is kind of...
I was coaching one of them in New York, and I was like trying to tread on, I didn't know what I was dealing with. And then after a few phone calls, he basically conceded that he didn't know how to do shit. And basically, he was hired because he was good looking. He knew all this about himself, and he had the pizzazz on the screen, which he absolutely did.
But he was more of an actor and less of a real
He was actor, and so I had to teach him the most basic core things. He didn't even know what a short sale was. Now, this was years ago, right? During when he should have known what a short sale was. He didn't know how to do anything. And it turns out the only thing he was really doing, despite what the TV show would have you believe, is leases. He was only doing leases.
I remember that.
And I don't know this for sure, but I've been told by a number of people in Manhattan who have his coaching clients that Barbara Corcoran, she never really personally sold real estate. Most of her success, and she's been incredibly successful, obviously, was from doing leases. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but on the TV shows and whatnot, are you being led to believe this person's successful at selling real estate or, being a rental agent? Again, you really have to drill down and you really have to be very careful who you listen to because you can ruin all your potentiality if you latch on to the wrong person or the wrong sets of ideas. And you can go down the wrong road, and then the real pain happens on the other side of it. When you start to realize you're on the wrong path, maybe you realize it voluntarily or involuntarily through failure, then the destruction of your personal willpower and confidence in your ability to be successful may never come back. And that's what we see a lot of times when people will come to coaching. Now, the ones that have gone through the sort of the burn and crash and burn cycle, they are very receptive to coaching because you don't have to convince them of all the dumb things not to do because they've already done them, and they'll often say that, which is kind of fantastic, honestly. But I don't think you have to actually have experienced the failure before you can experience success. It was Warren Buffett that's famous for saying, Open. I got to get on a Zoom. It's Warren Buffett that was famous for saying, America loves to celebrate the comeback story. I like to celebrate the person that built it and never lost it. Right. And so you guys can do the same thing if you follow the right path, if you listen to the right leaders. This isn't just true for hiring a real estate coach. This is true for all aspects of life. So be incredibly picky, especially in this age of fake experts, as fake influencers. Just be incredibly picky. I honestly think if I were in my 20s right now, I'm not sure. I know I wouldn't have been smart enough to know who to listen to.
No, it's super confusing.
Do you remember the first time? We're on our little soapbox here, but I remember you and I when we became Howard Brinton stars, and I just met somebody who we essentially became a Howard Brinton star at the same time. I had Jeff Wilhelms, and we hadn't talked to him forever. It was incredible, actually.
Great group of
25 years. Yeah. So the Howard Brinton in the day was like being a knight of the round table in essence. If you were selected to be a Howard Brinton star, it was at the time, arguably the greatest honor in real estate. You got to be there. This was pre-internet, right? So he would fly to you. You would do this interview. It was very sort of Larry King meets somebody a lot nicer, and you would do this interview, and then the interview would be sent directly in CD. Actually, originally it was tapes, and then eventually cassettes, and eventually it became CDs because that was the latest technology. I remember people bitching that they were getting CDs and they didn't have CD players in their cars. Do you remember that?
Gosh, you're making me feel old.
I know. Well, you kind of are, sister.
You're older.
Okay, well, but I remember when we finally became Howard Brinton stars. It was not that finally. It was after a second year. But he found out about us. We had, sold a lot of houses and whatever. So he asked us to be Howard Brinton stars. Of course we were. It was September of, I don't remember what year. And so then we were then privy to go to the Howard Brinton star mastermind. Now that was the real reason we wanted to be Howard stars, and they always happened in January. They always happened at the Ritz-Carlton, and they always happened in some expensive area of the world. By the way, did you know that where we live right now, the Ritz-Carlton here has the highest per night room rate of any Ritz-Carlton in the world?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
Make sure when you invite people to come visit us, you maybe tell them to look on VRBO.
Indeed.
Yeah. So in any event, we would always go to the Howard Brinton events at Ritz-Carlton and spend some extraordinary amount of money and sort of like be worrying about it the whole time because it was so ridiculous. And they were always fun. But our whole point of going to this was to be in the room with these agents that were, Howard Brinton stars, the biggest producers in the world. And Julie and I went, and our North Star has always been wealth accumulation. We didn't want to get into real estate to build a big team just to basically have no ability to really accumulate any wealth, or for the grand, to be, big famous people, or that was never our motivation. Our motivation also always was to focus in on being successful, profitable business owners. And so we didn't have all these, terms that we now throw around, refined and defined, but we did know that at the end of the day, our product was profit, and we did know, and we did buy lots of rental properties, and we've kept all but maybe 2. Okay. So that we were very clear about that. But what was shocking to me, and we didn't realize this until maybe our second or third Howard Brinton event. So we figured on the first one, well, they're just not inviting us to the real meetings where they're really talking about wealth accumulation, where they're really talking about the real meat and potatoes of what it takes to be, millionaires, decamillionaires, billionaires. We thought, well, we'll just have to earn their trust. And then we went to these things for a couple more years, and then we realized there was no deeper conversation going on anywhere. It wasn't happening. And these people were not, and God bless all of them, some of them are still our friends, the vast majority were not focused on anything other than essentially lifestyle. They were the typical, this was when the advent of teams. These Howard Brinton's where essentially all the birthing of the modern team philosophy came from. And these people, a lot of them were actually featured in Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And they're on, I think, like the page 5. When you look at that picture, that black and white picture of all the people that helped Howard put that book together, they're all Howard stars. I'm sorry, Gary put the book together. They're all Howard stars. And that's where Gary got most of the ideas for that book is from Howard Brinton. He admits that, and it's no big secret, right? And so, again, what those businesses had become and were becoming were not focused on profit. They were focused on lifestyle, being famous, being peacocks. And that was not for us. And
I remember going to those.
It was painful.
I remember after a few years, you and I having this sense of searching for, that's it?
Yep, it wasn't there.
Isn't there more? Is there somebody that can show us that path?
And
I remember feeling that feeling.
Disappointment. And the thing became to brag about how few hours you work. Yeah. The thing became brag about how many people you've delegated to, how big your team was. That was the thing. And then people would show up with more and more diamonds on their Rolexes, and all the rest of it.
It really happened.
It really happened. And all of a sudden the market changes. And then you see that the king had no clothes on. Then you see when the cash flow stops, then you heard all these tragic stories of all these highfalutin agents. A lot of them.
I remember that too. I remember hearing about people's tax troubles and
bankruptcies. It's like
divorces.
It's like Julie and I were, wow, we are not into this. And we stopped going. We stopped going to the Howard events because we realized that was not the path we wanted to follow, even though it was seductive. Like I remember Julie and I sold 103 houses our first year. And it was Julie and I, right? That was it. Yep. No team. And I remember we started going to the Howard things and we were getting so much pressure on doing things the wrong way, and we were too dumb to know that we shouldn't listen to them, and we actually did it for like a year to 2 years. Oh, you've got to add buyer agents. Oh, you got to add a team. You got to start doing marketing. You got to start doing direct mail. You got to start doing this, the other thing. And we did it because we figured they knew better than us, and they didn't. They didn't know better than us.
What was really happening is stopping the profit.
Yeah, that's what happened. I remember it was into maybe our 5th year or 6th year in real estate, something like that, that our accountant comes by our house. And this time we had a really beautiful house in New Albany, country club area. And he came in and he didn't really, he wasn't like calling us dumbasses, but he said, he pointed out the fact
it was implied
that our profit was less after having sold 2.5x the number of homes that we did our first year or something like that. That our net profit was actually less than our first year in real estate where we really didn't know what we were doing.
And he was like, did you know about this?
That's what he said. I remember looking at the numbers going, no, I had, because we were following essentially a business model that was not putting profit first.
Yeah, but at the time it felt like the right thing to do because everybody was doing it.
Mm-hmm. We were peer pressured,
and I think a lot of people do it for the recognition and because it does make you feel good and because
it's
doing
ego.
It's ego, And I recognize that doing a lot of transactions and dealing with a lot of people and their situations and their conflict is stressful, but the solution is not to go blow your profit.
That's right. Well, you have to have profit in the first place.
Indeed.
Yes. So
you have a Zoom to get to.
I do.
We should warn them about the Sunday show coming up.
Oh, what are we talking about?
We don't know yet. That's the whole point of the Sunday show.
I thought maybe you had a bunch of goofy articles saved.
I have to collect some more.
Oh, no, you do have one. Did you read that article about aliens? The one?
Yes. That's a good one.
Okay, we have a good alien. So
one of our perennial topics.
Yeah, our joke is basically we've had everything else happen in 2020 except an alien visitation, and now there's other people that have latched on to that. What a goofy ass year this has been, right? And how the only thing missing are the aliens, and so now people are starting to theorize that we're going to be visited by aliens. It's so amazing to watch this.
Why not? It's 2020.
I mean, seriously.
Throw that on there.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I don't know what that would do to can you imagine, honestly? Okay, let's save it for Sunday.
I think people, we'll save it for Sunday. But honestly, at this point, I think people will be like, whatever. Of course. What am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. So in the meantime, guys, if you would like to talk with us about joining our EXP family, do feel free to text me directly on my private cell phone, which is 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206. Do feel free to text me directly, and let's have a conversation about why EXP is definitely the right move forward for you in your real estate business, 512-758-0206. And do listen to our Sunday podcast. We have a lot of fun. We talk about pretty much whatever comes to mind, and Julie and I do seek out usually non-real estate things just to spice things up and keep your mental juices flowing. Please do remember, do not coast in fourth quarter. Do not take the rest of the year off. Stay focused. If you guys need us for anything, you know how to find us. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we will talk with you on the show tomorrow. Remember, you can listen to literally thousands of past podcasts on Stitcher, iTunes, Audible, Spotify. I mean, we're available everywhere. Have a fantastic day.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows. And until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.